Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Jill Barcy. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. And here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. We speak to from students to retirees and anywhere in between. And so today, I'm pleased to welcome Toni Pinedo. Toni is a registered nurse, an author, an advocate, an activist, a cannabis specialist. So thank you, Toni, for coming. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My first question, of course, is going to be, why are you a nurse? Why were you a nurse?
Well, the first reason is because my cousin he became a quadriplegic at 13. He was hit by a drunk driver. And I was way younger. So he was 13. I was very young. So we grew up with nurses in the house 24/7 because he was a full quadriplegic, from the neck down. And he was required 24-hour nursing care. So that's how nurses came into our family. That's how I learned about nurses. And I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a nurse to take care of my cousin.
And so you, of course, also had some, well, let me ask you, when you became a nurse, what were the challenges for you?
Oh, I would just say there was not enough training in nursing school to prepare you for what was to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So it was a difficult transition, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's a difficult transition. If you, any nursing school, I think, if the curriculum isn't good or there's not enough, good staff, it could be a different thing. It's just a different things. But I would say not knowing what was to come. Not
Yes.
knowing.
Yeah, I get it. So once you became a nurse, what kind of areas did you work?
Well, as soon as when I became a nurse in 1993, I'd already been working as a nursing assistant for 5 years. I became a nursing assistant in high school. Then I worked through high school and college as a nursing assistant and a tech. So I worked already on the med surge, long-term care, and I would help out in the ICU. So I did all those three things all through nursing school. So that really helped me get through nursing school.
Indeed.
And then once I graduated, I went straight into the emergency room and I just did critical care. From that point, I started traveling and then I moved away to different states and I worked in just critical care areas. So emergency room, ICU, CCU, step down ICU, telemetry, anything that was cardiac, anything emergency room, anything like that, I did. So I did that for a good, 10 years.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So you worked in many areas. So having worked in all of those areas though, and in so many different areas, because I see that you also liked camp nursing.
Oh, I love camp nursing. Totally different, but I worked for diabetes. I was the director, nursing director at Clara Barton Camp it's a diabetes girls camp in Auburn, Massachusetts. It's associated with Harvard Medical School, and it is a camp for type 1 girls. They could go from kindergarten all the way up to college, and you learn about diabetes. So I would do that. I did that in the summer, and I would work with the kids that were diabetic. And so parents would send their kids from all over the country to this camp because a lot of these kids would go to school and they'd be the only diabetic, or
Yeah.
they wouldn't have the support they needed. So at this camp, you came together with other children and we all learned about diabetes together and how to give our shots and how to do pumps and food, and it was fun. for me.
I would imagine so, because as you mentioned, you know, throughout school life, they're very often isolated. And so it would be good to be around other people who are just like you and going through the same things. And
Correct.
yeah.
Learning together. That's the way.
Hmm. Yeah, I imagine that would be great. So having done all of these things, what would you like to see change in nursing, if anything?
Oh, we need better pay. We need the hours are terrible, so there's really nothing you can do about that. 24-hour care is what we are here to do.
Yeah.
So I expect to be paid at least $200 an hour to walk out my door. I mean, I'm here to save your life. I'm here to protect your life. I feel that I went to school to make sure you stay alive. I feel I should be compensated for that. Equal pay. If it was more of a men driven profession, they would be
Mhm.
getting paid a lot more.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. And that is so very, very, very true. That's so very true. So to shift a little bit, you had your own health challenges, and that's what led you to cannabis. So talk to me about this.
Okay, well, I wanted to have a child. And so I already had had a son at 35, and it was a very traumatic birth, very traumatic. And I went through a lot. So at 41, I ended up having a little girl, but again, the birth was very traumatic, and the doctor put me on opiates for pain. I questioned him at that time because I had heard about other people getting addicted. I
Mhm.
myself have a history, so I was not for it, but I was in so much pain. I had a lot of medical pregnancy issues.
Yeah.
I had placenta previa. I mean, just an unimaginable amount of pain. And not one person talked to me about marijuana. Not one person talked to me about how to help me through this, really, except to flood me with pills.
Yeah. And so
So what
um
happened was I got very sick during the pregnancy. I believe it was because of the opiates and all other things that I was on, trying to relieve the pain. So when I had my daughter, I got very sick. I had to have an emergency C-section. She almost died. It was terrible. It was in the NICU, my terrible surgery. So of course they just give you a bunch of pain medicine and whatever just to keep you quiet and shoot you out the door. But it's a lot of trauma for a woman to go through, and the alternatives are not there's not alternatives there really that much. I mean, for pain relief sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
So I became very sick, and then I had a heart attack 6 months after having my daughter. um I had lung failure. I got into lung failure, and the heart attack just was the worst. So I was nursing full time. I was a nurse at the time, full time dialysis, carrying a baby, newborn. I couldn't do it. It was very hard having no support at all. So I became sicker and sicker. And then I lived that way for a long time. I would say a good 7 years around the clock on oxygen with the heart attacks. I gained a lot of weight. I got very sick. I was probably almost 500 pounds. I ended up in a wheelchair. I had, oh, it was just terrible. A lot of things happened. So in 2017, I was at my heaviest as 500. I was sick. I was dying in a wheelchair on oxygen around the clock. And I got chest pain again. So I went to the hospital. The doctor found that one of the stents had dissected my heart. So I had a dissection. So only 1% of people live through that.
Yeah.
And at that time, we had a heart to heart. He said, you have 3 months to live. There was nothing else they could do. They ended up giving me 3 more stents. So I have 6 stents in my heart, chest pain. Basically, it was like, this is it. So I talked to the doctor. I said, what about alternative medicine? What about other ways to heal me besides taking all these medications that you're giving? Because at this time, between my primary, the heart doctor, the lung doctor, I was up to like 35, 40 medications.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to have a heart to heart with myself. And I had to have a heart to heart with the heart doctor, because he said, there's nothing I can do from here on out. You know, I mean, we could repair the stents as we go through. Hopefully, you know, that was a rare occasion, but
Yeah.
you know, there's really nothing. It's you know. So I came home, and what do you do when you're confronted with that situation? I prayed to God about it. I asked for guidance, because I already knew it was going to be over. So I prepared my will. I prepared my obituary. I did it all. Like, I was not, because I have young kids.
Yeah.
So I was very sick, and I just started researching ways to heal myself. And like I said, alternative medicine. So I talked to the doctor about maybe some ancient Chinese medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, you know, we can't recommend that. He says, but my dad was an acupuncturist, and every time we were hurting, he used that. So I'm not going to go against that. He goes, but we're not, as medical doctors, we're not supposed to promote
the alternative
healing. They're supposed to promote pills, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, okay, so what happened was, somehow somebody handed me a marijuana joint. I tried it.
Yeah.
I'm dying. I'm going to die anyway.
Why not? Why not?
I'm going to die anyway. So why not try that? So I smoked one little cigarette on my oxygen. Totally, you're not supposed to do that. But I did it. I smoked it, and I tell you what, immediately, I saw a difference in my lungs, in my mind, in my physical, in my well-being. I was up cleaning a counter. That was a miracle in itself. I couldn't even get out of bed before. So my shock, I just smoked a little cigarette, a little marijuana cigarette, and all of a sudden I feel good. First time in 7 years. I said, whoa, I'm a scientist at heart. I'm a registered nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I give drugs for a living.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I give whatever drugs the doctor ordered, the emergency room. I'm your drug person. But this is a drug that I didn't know about. The only thing I knew about it was that everybody said it was bad, that it was put you in prison, and that it was the worst thing in the world, and that the government had made this the worst thing in the world. So that's why they made it a controlled whatever bad
controlled substance. Yeah.
They did all kind of stuff, and they did a lot of things. The government did a lot of things to hide the benefits of this plant. So I am here to explain to everyone and write a book and write an ebook and an audio book about the benefits of this plant, and to debunk the myth of marijuana. I wrote the White House. because
Yes,
the
I know
way
you
the
did. You wrote the president.
yes, because what's going on with big pharma, the way they make their money. I'm part of it, right? I'm a nurse. So I'm
Mhm.
getting the medications from the doctor. I'm giving them to you, and I just got you addicted. I'm part of the problem. So I need to be part of the solution, you see? I need to tell the truth. The
Uh-huh.
truth is that a lot of people are doing this for money, and they're getting people sick, and
Mhm.
they're just making people more and more sick, so you can stay in the loop, so you do not get well, so you continue to make money for other people. Your sickness is money to other people. They don't
There you
want you.
go. So and so your book, by the way, since you mentioned it, let us tell people what it's called. It's called How Medical Marijuana
Well,
Saved
no,
My
no,
Life.
the name of the book is called Medical Marijuana Save My
Saved
Life
My
by
life. Yes.
Toni Pinedo Jeffress. Because
Yeah.
at the time when I wrote it, I was still married. But I ended up getting divorced because, again, because of lack of education and understanding, my ex-husband could not put that together as a medicine. So
Yeah.
even though I'm dying, he was okay with me taking all the pills from the doctors.
Yeah, that's a hard hurdle to, or that's a big hurdle to
Yes.
overcome.
So,
We've been,
that's right. Now I'm Toni Pinedo, just straight Toni Pinedo. But on Amazon, yeah, there's an ebook, there's an audio book, and it explains the benefits of it. And I feel so strongly and passionate about it that I'm not going to stop. That I'm going to
I
make
know.
sure the whole world knows about it, because you know what? There's children, there's people that need this medicine, not to get high, but maybe to stop the tremors, maybe to
Yeah.
stop the seizures, because your medicine is actually killing us. Those pills, they're actually hurting people.
I listened to your book. I have to
You
tell
did.
you. I listened to your book. I listened to it all the way through. And the part that impressed me the most was towards the end of it, because at the end of it, you really break it down and talk about the different types of marijuana, what THC
Correct,
is, what
correct.
CBD is.
It's
Very
so,
explanatory.
the thing is now with Oregon leading the way and Colorado leading the way, they were able to bring so many products to America and to the people, to, it's going to be to the world eventually. You know, New Mexico just
Mhm.
became legal. I used to have to travel 3 hours to get this medicine called Rick Simpson's oil. And that's
Mm.
really the oil that helped me get well. So in the book, you're right. There's so many areas. You don't gotta smoke. You could even put a cream on now. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So I know that you are very, very passionate about it. And more power to you. So, Tony, quick question. As we talk about nursing and nurses and what's happening in nursing now, a lot of nurses are feeling pressured, are feeling burnt out, are feeling really as if they don't know where to go. There are lots of things that contribute to this, but I also think that one of the things is that we have never been in the practice of taking care of ourselves. So,
Correct.
what does self-care mean to you?
Well, I wish I'd have known this a long time ago. But self-care is putting yourself number one. That is it. It is not selfish. It is not guilt. It is not nothing. You keep giving and giving and giving to everybody, you will end up empty, completely empty. That's why nurses burn out. That's
Yeah,
why nurses turn to substances. That's why nurses leave. That's why nurses, whatever becomes of that nurse, you know, you have to
yeah.
have, you have to take care of yourself. That means you got to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
when you're working 12-hour shifts, 7 days on, 7 days off, that sleep is terrible.
yeah, yeah,
You got
yeah,
to eat right. You got to take care of yourself. You can't be living on coke and cigarettes all the whole shift. That is not going to work for 30 years.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
eat. You got to take care of yourself. You got to meditate because you're going into a war zone depending on the nursing that you're doing. There's so much across the board. Your day could be as easy as apple pie, but it could be as hard as, I'm sorry, your loved one just died.
Yeah, I know. It's really this. It's really. It
So
can be really hard.
for nurses that work, especially in trauma and high pressured areas, if you don't have a way to release that stuff, and I'm talking in either exercise, sauna, detox, run, whatever, you got to do it because those things are going to eat you up.
Yeah. And I ask this question to every single nurse because I really, really want to get it out there and get it in our heads. We're women. Women typically don't, take care of everyone else first. And then we're nurses on top of that. And
Just
really, I want everyone to get it. I'm sorry?
We're just a big codependent mess sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody around us is fortunate, but not us sometimes, unfortunately.
Not sometimes. Yeah. And I really, really want us to get it that we really, really need to take care of ourselves.
Correct.
And as I'm beginning to say,
and that includes work environment. There is such toxicity in nurses and environment that if you don't speak up for yourself, you may not be happy at that job, and that's sad for you. Because a lot of administrators are not supportive of the nurses. That's the thing. The working conditions are terrible, so if we don't have good leaders and good managers, it makes it hard. I feel bad for the people now that need nurses because a lot of us nurses are going to retirement.
Indeed. And lack of boundaries is a huge issue. At least I see that lack of boundaries is a huge issue.
I have none. I'm just saying because a lot of it was for my training too. You work in the emergency room. You don't got time to be, you got to find out right away what's going on. And then you feel like that. That's the way it goes. You're an open, empathetic nurse, but you have to learn to rein it in. But you got to take care of yourself first because that's it.
And Toni, the thing that we don't, I think we don't admit is that for a lot of us, this business of working so much and being there all the time is an ego boost.
Why do you want to be there all the time? For what? I mean, you're going to make money no matter what. But we know that at a certain amount of hours, after that, the government just takes our money. So it doesn't even matter. I listen to me. I'm just trying to tell you, as a nurse, if you're doing this for money, get out. It's not for money. You can make the money. You will make the money. But if you're not happy, you will not be happy. I don't care how much money you make.
Yeah, and not for nothing, but you're going to spend that money looking after your health later. So there.
That's what I'm doing now. That's what I'm doing now because for years I took care of everyone else. And then when I got really sick, there was no nurse to take care of Toni. No nurse. There's no other nurse in my family. I'm the nurse. I had to give up a lot to take care of me, and it probably, it probably shocked a lot of people, but it was either that or the grave.
Or die. And speaking of that, I see that you this activism has led you, at least, and even if not fully, at least on the fringes of politics. You've become very political, huh?
Oh yes, I'm friends with the governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, and yes, we became like this. Yes, I also think it's very important to vote and not to give away your rights as a woman, to know who you're voting for and who represents you. And Michelle Lujan Grisham represents me.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
And
mhm.
also because she associates and she brings awareness with the murdered and missing indigenous women of New Mexico. So that is why we also became good friends.
I so lastly but not leastly, if someone wants to be a nurse or even a young nurse, what advice would you give them? Someone who
I
wants to go into
say
nursing.
this is the way I did it. I would not recommend this for anyone. But if you are a young nurse, I would advise this. I would advise to pick your college. Make sure you're going to be happy there. I would immediately do the 4-year BSN. Don't go below that. I have an associate. I'm short my BSN, but it's hard to go back to school 30 years later sometimes.
I know.
So go for your full BSN. Do not have a boyfriend. Do not bother with relationships. Do not have a child for those 3 years. Do not even have friends that are outside of nursing. I would not associate with nobody that was not in nursing school. I would totally focus and I would give the 3 years of my life. I would totally sacrifice those 3 years to be finished. And you will not regret it. It will seem terrible and it will seem painful and it will seem like you will never get through it. But believe me, you will, if that is truly what you want. But you have to focus and not everybody can be a nurse.
That is true.
Once you
That is
become a
true.
nurse, once you're a nurse, you're always a nurse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the thing is, you have to focus and really go for it. If you do have a family, you need to realize that your husband will suffer, your children will suffer, and your house will suffer. So you just need to get really organized and prepared and don't mess around.
Mhm.
If you're not sure what you want, then don't do it. It's not worth it.
All righty.
That's
And
it.
on that note, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Toni. Um, and in the description box, I'm going to put the name of your book.
Oh, will you
Um,
please? I don't know if you could do a link to my book. That would be great. Um, what was I going to tell you? Darn, it skipped my mind. Go ahead.
no, I was saying that I'm going to put
Oh, leave me a
information about.
review. Leave me a review on Amazon. I really appreciate those reviews. It actually, you know,
I absolutely will. I absolutely will
I would,
because I have to say that I found it very informative. I learned stuff from it. So
if you would
yes.
please share it with other nurses, doctors, patients, people that are struggling with substance abuse or any issue, honestly, any issue at this point, because research is going on now as we speak in
Mhm.
different universities.
Yeah.
Legalization is opening up. Now big pharma is realizing, oh, we can make money on marijuana.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
already distributing marijuana pills as we speak.
Mhm. Mhm. I know. Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
already going into the hospitals because you can't hide the truth anymore. I mean, you cannot hide the benefits of the plant. So that's why I became who I am. That's why I'm going forward to try to just advocate for the world. I'm just a little Latina in the res, but I know I can do it. Just take some time. I'm not
Well,
Snoop
well.
Dogg. I'm not Snoop Dogg. But I can try to be. Just kidding.
Well, I have to tell you, Toni, that I feel very privileged to have, and we haven't personally met, but I feel very privileged to have met you. So thank
Thank
you
you.
very much
I'm
for
so happy that you got to listen to my book
I am.
because it's a lot. I know it's a
Mhm.
lot, but it packs a punch.
That it does. That it does. Thank you so much, Toni.